Alright. Hi everyone. I'm gonna go over how I Mistweaver, both for 5-mans and for raids. So this is for the kind of, I guess you could say, traditional healing. It's not the kick weaving or in melee healing setup. So if you want that, sorry, don't know how to do that. Maybe one day. So this is the pretty standard talent setup for M+ for Mistweaver. There's some options here. You can swap some of these with fairly little impact. So I like Chi Burst. It's a nice AoE. It also damages things pretty decently. Just be mindful it goes kind of far. So it's really easy to pull stuff in dungeons. So if you're brand new to Mistweaving and have never used Chi Burst ever, be super careful and try and point that somewhere safe. It's a lot like Twidev, if you're familiar with Twilight Devastation Corruption. It goes about that far, so just be mindful of that. This row is entirely subjective. There's a lot of value in Tiger's Lust in that you can put it on other people, so it's a lot like Hand of Freedom in that sense. So I probably should go with that. I don't know, I kind of like Cheap Torpedo for no other reason other than I like it. This is your mana row. Life Cycles is nice for M+ in particular. It basically gives you a 25% reduction in mana cost between Enveloping Mist and Vivify, assuming that you're alternating them, which is pretty common in M+. So I'll get to the spell abilities in a second, but usually this is the best choice for M+. So this is your CC row. Ring of Peace is really excellent, has a ton of utility. You can get super inventive with it. There's a use for it in just about every boss that involves ads. I'll go over more scenarios where you can use that in a second. This is your defensive. Diffuse magic is definitely going to be better if you're anticipating purely magic damage. This is kind of your blanket, any kind of damage. So either or, if you're pretty certain it's going to be magic, this is definitely going to be better for you. So Summon Jade Serpent. This is usually going to be your best regardless of M+ and raid. It's kind of a fire and forget. It has a really long range. It's 40 yards. Not sure if the tooltip... Oh, yep, it does. So you can cast that. So when you cast Soothing Mists, which is your weak channeled heal, it's going to cast that on your target, and it's going to keep doing it for a really long time. So it's a nice tank thing, a nice spot healing thing, and the range is nice. You can kind of pre-place it, far ahead, and then you only need to replace it every now and then. So yeah, pretty nice. If you want something a little more fire and forget, Chi-Ji is decent. It's not as good as the Serpent, but if you find that you're just not putting the Serpent statue down, which is totally understandable if you're just starting, you can just go with Chi-Ji for a little while until you get used to other things. This hasn't really been recommended a whole lot in this expansion. This is Refreshing Jade Wind if you're entirely stacked up for the majority of an encounter. This does perform well, but that's so rare that it's usually just not worth it. So yeah. And your last row, this is where you will pick, depending on whether you're M+ or in a raid. So Focus Thunder is really nice for M+. It empowers your so your Thunder Focus T gets 2 charges basically, which is really nice. So for raids, you want to do Upwelling. This makes your Essence Font, which is the core of your group raid healing, and the core of this spec. That's where most of your healing is going to come from, either directly or indirectly through your mastery, and I'll explain that more in a bit. So again, this is my pretty standard M+ setup, and then for raids, all I'm really going to do is swap over to Upwelling, and then usually Mana Tea. It depends. If you have a pretty small raid and you're regularly using Enveloping Mist, which is your big tank heal, Life Cycles is probably still gonna be your best throughput. But if you have a really big raid and you're not really doing a whole lot of tank healing, Mana Tea is probably going to be your better. So just a call there. So I'll leave it at that. So let me get in combat here so you can see my... So this is my tell me when setup, and this tracks all of my healing cooldowns, basically everything that I use that I want to be aware of. So as you can see, I cast my Jade Serpent, so my little icon went away. That's just my heads up, so if I see it, I know that it's going away. And I need to fix it, obviously. It doesn't work quite so well when I'm out of combat. So this is Renewing Mist. This is, in my opinion, the best hot in the game. So you place it on a target, and if it heals a full health target, it's going to hop to a non-full health target. So it's smart, making it really potent. So you always want to use it on cooldown. You have 2 charges. It feels like you're using it too much. Even if folks don't need it, you should still fire it out and make sure that you never have any stacks, unless you're saving it for something very special. Because, like I said, it's going to hop to someone who does need it, so better to have those out and rolling and ready to hop to people that need it than sitting on them for pretty much any reason. So this is Essence Font. As you can see, it's tracking my stacks. So I have 18. And that, again, is from this Upwelling talent. So for every 6 seconds Essence Font spends off cooldown, your next Essence Font may be channeled for 1 additional second. So basically, if you leave it be for a good long while, it'll eventually cap out at 18. So it'll last a really long time. So I'm going to cast it here. It looks a lot cooler in raids because little beams will hit other people. Anywho, it's an AoE. So the neat part about it is it's going to put this little buff on people. So this is Healbot. So you can see it's the same icon. So the important part about that is how it interacts with your mastery. So I'm going to read what your mastery is. So Renewing Mist, Enveloping Mist, and Vivify cause a gust of healing mist, instantly healing the primary target for blah blah blah. So basically, whenever you cast any of those on somebody, depending on how much mastery you have, it's going to instant heal them for that amount. Essence Font does a cool thing with that. So Gusts of Mist will heal affected targets twice. So what that means is if you're going along and healing someone, say you cast Essence Font, pretend we have a big old raid, and there's people that have this buff. It's not going to be everybody, it's whatever Essence Font ended up hitting. You want to prioritize healing those people because they're going to get a double whammy of Gusts of Mist. So that can be really potent, and if you do that well, and assuming you don't have a tiny amount of mastery, Gusts of Mist will easily be in your top 3 of your healing. If you're not paying attention to that, it's not. And you might as well maximize it, especially if you're healing a big raid, and bursts usually happen to everybody, so you can just prioritize folks that have your Essence Font buff, because they're just going to get a double hit of that mastery, that Gust of Mist, for free. So Mistweaver is pretty mana intensive, so it's just another way to maximize your healing, so you're not having to do other things. The more mileage you can get out of your mastery, the better. That said, for stats, for raids you actually want crit and verse over haste and mastery. That being said, I've rarely been able to get them to fall into line quite nicely. I usually end up having a pretty decent mix of all of them. The world doesn't fall apart if you don't have, the majority in crit and verse. It's just a little bit better for raids. If you end up having a lot of haste, just be mindful, because again, you're a pretty mana intensive class. So although the inverse is true for M+, you'll value haste and mastery more in M+. Alright, so the usual rotation is, again, you want to use Renewing Mist on cooldown. Want to make sure you're firing that away. Chi Burst for group healing. I usually just hit it on cooldown anyways, especially in M+, because it does do a bit of damage too. So anything you can do to help folks, especially at ranged. And then for group healing, Essence Font, of course, is great, if nothing else, for the buff. For M+, you won't have Upwelling, you'll have Focus Thunder. So let me swap that over so I can show you the difference. Oh, I'm in combat. Just kidding. So the difference is, again, it's going to give you 2 charges to your Thunder Focus T. But you don't get that long, stacked Essence Font. It's just going to be a short typical duration. So we'll swap that over. So now, as you can see, I don't have any stacks. Let me start hitting things again. So I cast it, and you can see it's a lot faster. You still get the buff and everything, it just doesn't last as long, nor does the actual channel. So, yeah, again, Renewing Mist, Essence Font, prioritize people that have the Essence Font buff if you can, if they're not going to die, of course. Make sure your statue is out. Chi Burst on cooldown, assuming it makes sense, and assuming you can. Don't pull anything extra. Pretty straightforward stuff. So, Enveloping Mist is your tank heal. So this is your big whammy. One thing to note with Enveloping Mist and Vivify, they're both instant cast if you're already channeling Soothing Mist, which you should be anyways. That's your filler. If you're doing nothing else, you should be channeling Soothing Mist. So if you're channeling Soothing Mist on that target, if you hit Enveloping Mist, it's instant, and Vivify, also instant. If you're not, they're decently long casts. It's not ideal. And there's no reason not to. You can just click on whatever new target you want, and then proceed from there. So I think that's one of the biggest hiccups and holdups is folks that are new to this, because it is kind of funky. They'll be channeling Soothing Mist on one person, and they'll try and cast Vivify on someone else, and it's gonna cue that cast time. So yeah, you can always just recast Soothing Mist. It's really cheap. Don't be scared of that, and of course your statue is gonna follow whoever you recast on. So totally worth it. Let's see. So yeah, Enveloping Mist, this is your tank heal. It basically puts a big dot on folks, and it gives you a 30% buff to your other spells. So definitely a way that you can funnel a lot of healing into a tank, assuming you have Renewing Mist rolling on them, your Soothing Mist, and then you're hitting them with Enveloping Mist, and then if they still really need help, you can start spamming Vivify at that point. You can really get tanks up quickly. I like Mistweaver a lot because it feels good both in M+, small raids, big raids. I don't feel like I don't have the tools to keep a tank up. Like Holy Priest, for example, that can be kind of tricky and frustrating. And on the other end, I don't feel like I have trouble keeping even a large raid up because of Essence Font and all the other tools. So it's good. Alright, so last thing I think is Revival. This is your big kind of instant fire group heal. It's like Tranquility but without the cast time. The neat thing and potentially raid wiping thing, depending on the encounter, is it also dispels magic, poison, and disease. Just about anything, it's going to purge that off of everyone. So I don't think there's any encounters in the current raid where that's detrimental, but I can definitely think of some older ones where that has both been a blessing and a curse. So just one thing to keep in mind if that comes up in the next expansion. Alright, so that's kind of it. Yeah, you're Renewing Mist, you're hitting your Essence Font, you're Enveloping Mist if people really need to get topped off, you're hitting Vivify if folks need it. Vivify is kind of an AoE. It's obviously the target that you're healing, and it's also going to heal folks who have Renewing Mist active. So another reason to keep firing that as often as possible. Thunder Focus T, I don't think I talked about this either. So you hit that, and then depending on what spell you use, you'll get a buff. So depending on what you use it for, so you can kind of control that. Gosh, yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you have questions.